Слава Ісусу Христу! Раді вас вітати в центрі митрополита Андрея Шептицького Українського католицького університету. У нас сьогодні дуже така цікава подія. Дуже рідко в нас відбувається щось такого цікавого, альтернативного масштабу і значення. Як ми анонсували, сьогодні ми не просто будемо ділитися думками. У нас сьогодні дійсно завітала дуже унікальна постать. І, відповідно, також в нас відбуватиметься в рамках цього заходу презентація унікальної арт-інсталяції гобелену. Про нього нам пан Дарсі розповість трошки згодом. І так само ми будемо мати унікальну нагоду подивитися фільм про українських митців, які, власне, з нами переживають наші складні часи. Модератором цієї зустрічі буде пан Остап Сливинський. Я думаю, ви його всі добре знаєте. Він теж представник арт-батальйону українських митців. Але щоб почати, я думаю, нам треба познайомитися з нашим запрошеним гостем Дарсі Атаман, але я попрошу до слова пані Катерину Кучерову, яка, власне, є репрезентантом візиту Дарсі до України, і це саме та людина, яка знає про творчий шлях Дарсі і загалом, що робиться ним в підтримку України, зокрема. Тому до слова, пані Катерино, розкажіть нам, кого ми сьогодні зустрічаємо.
Дякую. Вітаю аудиторія, дякую вам за те, що ви долучились сьогодні до нас. І я хочу представитись, мене звати Катерина Кучерова, я є засновницею арт-ательє Art Society by KK, і також я є репрезентатором Дарсі Атамана в Україні і засновниця події United by Art, під час якої, власне, ми запросили Дарсі до України. Це подія, міжнародна культурна ініціатива, яка поєднує музику, кіно та мистецтво. Я коротко скажу буквально про цю подію, бо вона вчора стартувала у вас у Львові в Закгалері, а завтра відбудеться ще в світі кави. Будьте здорові. І ця подія якраз поєднує трьох міжнародних митців. Це грузинського митця Автанділа Гургенідзе, канадського продюсера та митця Дарсі Атамана та американсько-української команди, яка працювала над фільмом «Паляниця», і її репрезентатор в Україні – це українська продюсерка Катерина Тимченко. Але зараз я хочу повернутися до Дарсі Атамана і трішки розповісти вам про нього, тому що, власне, Дарсі мене надихнув на створення цього проєкту United by Art. І, власне, Дарсі більше надихнула його програма Healthy and Harmony, тому що Дарсі багато років працює в зонах бойових конфліктів в різних країнах світу. Це Сирія, Конго і інші країни. І його програма дуже допомагає людям лікуватися від посттравматичних синдромів на кшталт ПТСР і інших. І це якраз про мистецтво не яке для естетики, знаєте, а те, яке якраз допомагає об'єднувати, лікувати, підтримувати. І його якраз кінострічка Ukrainian Artists United, вона про відчуття, про глибину, про те, як музикантам і митцям тяжко творити під час війни в Україні. І Дарсі зафільмував їх історії, про які він згодом розповість. Власне, я ще хочу сказати, що дуже цікава буде арт-інсталяція. Це арт-інсталяція, яку Дарсі привіз до України, і вона складається з 30 клаптиків військової уніформи, на якій вишита історія одного з військового, який перебував на фронті. Він подарував свій щоденник для Дарсі, і Дарсі зробив з цього інсталяцію, з якою їздить по світу. Власне, ця інсталяція була презентована нещодавно в Нью-Йорку. І Дарсі розповів у міжнародній аудиторії про те, що відбувається нині в Україні. Власне, і проєкт United by Art, і візит Дарсі в Україну – це важлива ініціатива, тому що для нас важливо, щоб український голос чули на міжнародній арені, тому що ми на сьогодні є щитом, який захищає, мені здається, весь світ від зла, яке прийшло поки що на нашу землю. Тому я би хотіла далі передати мікрофон, пане Остапе, вам, мабуть, щоб чи Дарсі, можливо, краще? Так.
Дуже дякую.
Дякую вам, дуже дякую.
Я буду як модератор м'яко переключати всі ці режими. Дуже дякую за те, що ви з нами. І сьогодні в нас багато цікавих речей. У нас буде, крім розмови, ми зараз подивимося фільм, який зняв Дарсі Атаман. And we'll now switch to English and go on with our conversation in English. So I hope that this will make our conversation more softer and more natural, because we will try to avoid translation. First of all, I'd like to say that I feel really happy and honored to welcome you here in the Ukrainian Catholic University. Here in this room, we used to have many discussions, many conversations about how to promote not only the image of Ukraine worldwide, but how to tell about our hottest needs, our super urgent needs, our ideas and concepts about how the future of Ukraine and Europe should look like. We were trying to model our cultural diplomacy. So it's very important that you are here as a person who practices this cultural diplomacy, coming from the outside and being Canadian of partly Ukrainian origin. Of course, we know it. It's very important to emphasize that. But I don't think that the origin, the roots, is the most important thing. Because identity is the matter of choice, finally. But it's very important that you have chosen to shed light on this part of your roots, and that you have chosen to support Ukraine and to tell our stories, to display our colleagues, to display Ukrainians. First of all, the Ukrainians who try to maintain making Ukrainian art nowadays. And I would ask you to tell us shortly, first of all, about the tapestry, but about the film, about this visual work of art before we watch this movie, this film, and then we'll go on with our discussion based, first of all, on the movie. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you. What a pleasure it is to be here today. And I have Ukrainian roots. My father is Ukrainian, and he came in that post-World War II influx. And I'm pretty sure his hometown was a little southwest of Lviv. Although he will not tell me exactly where it is or what was, and he perfectly knows where it is. And I think actually that's an important point, because it shows how that trauma from these conflicts will pass down generation to generation, to the fact that he won't even still tell me. So I'll briefly tell you about these two artworks, and then more importantly, why I'm here, which is a very simple reason, but I'm hoping profound. The part of this tapestry, it's much bigger than this. It's called All the Love We Cannot Bear Articulated. And what it is again, it's 30 Ukrainian uniforms from the front lines, and then a diary from a soldier, a warrior from the front lines, and a month of his entries. And the purpose of it is to really humanize the conflict. And sadly, again, everyone in this room and online watching through the university does not need this war to be humanized. You sadly perfectly know the consequences of it daily. But honestly, for people in North America, they don't. And it's really difficult to watch on the news statistics and numbers and to care about numbers. So I'm hoping by this art to bring it down to a human level. It will create empathy so we can keep on supporting Ukraine. And that is really the point of it. And with the film, which is more what I call 11 digital paintings more than a film that you will see, it's a collaborative process between actually 11 artists from Lviv, coincidentally. And we have one in the room here today, Olena, that you will see. So I'm really happy that she's here. Collaborating with sort of really famous Canadian musicians, some of the top on the planet. So I came here, I think it was 3 years ago, and recorded and worked with these wonderful artists from Lviv. And I took that source material and I gave it again to sort of my famous friends, and we created these 2-minute mini scores in collaboration. And hopefully, if I still have time to drone on a bit, that was really profound is the connection through music and art as the language. So night one that I was here in Lviv the first time, we're working with sort of a punk rock band, and I just gotten here with also my friend.
Beton.
Yes, Beton, yeah, who I'm seeing tonight, which I can't wait. The great band.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, love them. And I was here with my friend Jason, who's the photographer on the shoot. And quite frankly, we were a little jet lagged and tired. We traveled from Canada. It takes a long time to get here, and we're in a charged environment as the beginning of the war. And I was trying to develop a relationship with Beton Man, and I asked him. I said, "Okay, we're about the same age. Tell me your favorite band. I want to know." And he just, his English, of course, not great. He's like, "I know. I just one sec. Billy Talent." And I was like, those are my best friends for the last 20 years. And I pulled out my phone and I showed him the text messages from the guitar player and I saying he's going to play on their piece. And their minds were blown. And the point of it was, without the language, that's how we connected right away. And to the point where when I got to the hotel that night, their guitar player, who was on the front lines as a medical doctor, had found out and had messaged me saying he cannot believe his favorite band in the world is going to play with him, and that's giving him hope to carry on another day. And that sounds maybe that sounds trite, but that's so powerful. I mean, again, it's an inversion of power, and I think that's important to state. But the two reasons before I watch the film why I'm here again is that I know tragically my presence will not stop the war, and I know tragically you do not need to know what the reality is every day. I just came from Kyiv for a week, and I understand the stress that you're under in that regard. But out of the last 15 years of me working in different war zones, one of the number one things I learned was the feeling of isolation. And no matter where I am, Africa, Syria, Peru, it's the feeling of where's the world? Doesn't anybody care? And so I just hope, as small as it is, to show that I've come from Canada to be with you, is to show that I do see you still and somebody cares. And I hope that means a little bit of something. And believe it or not, my presence here does help to keep this in the news in North America. And then it can hopefully keep our aid going. So that's why I'm here today.
Thanks. That's one of the most important things that culture can do now. We often ask ourselves, and we keep asking this since 22, and especially 22 maybe, when our reality changed dramatically, and many of Ukrainian artists and writers didn't have any idea what to do, how to use. How to apply our skills, our craft, and it seems to us completely senseless to practice our art, to keep on practicing it, because what can art mean under the bombs and missiles? And but very quickly we understood that it's a very important element of resilience, first for us, for the inner audience, but second, it's very important instrument of cultural diplomacy, of speaking about ourselves worldwide, to speak out ourselves. So I think now we can move to the film. So if you like, you can make some intro if you feel like, and if you feel it appropriate to tell something before we watch the film, or we can talk about the film afterwards. It's up to you.
Well, I have lots to say after, but
Okay.
As we watch it, just again, it's not a traditional film. Please try to, as best feel the music. You know, again, in these situations, I feel that sort of the last bastion is to hold on to our humanity, and our humanity is born in our emotions and feelings. So once we lose that, the enemy really does win. So please try to feel the collaborative music, and then we'll speak later.
Well, thank you. Now, as we have watched this film, a very emotional one, very impressing, visual and musical, which is with this focus on faces, on phrases, and phrases. On these voices echoing in each other, when sometimes you try to figure out what did they say, and the time after time you cannot hear the clear message, even because of these echoes, because of these sound effects, but it triggers you. It triggers because you start imagining what can be behind these stories, behind these scenes depicted in these photos, and behind these short phrases of fragments or longer texts, such as this fragment of, for example, Helena Kruk's poem. And I think that this is the way this kind of art works, basically. It resembles the situation when you passing by, glimpse something disturbing through the half-open door. It triggers you, but you keep going, but you understand that you're still thinking about what you have seen, and you come back and try to understand what was behind that triggering fragment that you have seen, and start immersing in the context, and start discovering, start learning about what was behind this short fragment of something in seemingly parallel reality. But this reality becomes your reality in the moment when you became this accidental witness. And I wanted to ask you, how did the people, the audience in different audiences who watched the film, not only the audience at the UNESCO headquarters in New York, but also in different other places in Ukraine and abroad, how did they react to the film? Did they ask any further questions? Did they want to learn something more about what had happened to these people, about what was behind these short fragmented stories, because it's not a story, it's not a full story, it's a fragmented mosaic, that what you let us see is some set of pieces of the people's stories. How it was?
Yeah, fragments a good way to put it. And honestly, I thank you for picking up on that. You're the first person that has.
Oh, really?
Yes, because it's sort of akin to, not to get too high and mighty, but is anyone seen like a Francis Bacon painting? No. Bacon just gives you glimpses, and then your brain sort of puts the rest together, and that's why it sticks with you. And that was sort of the impetus behind this, is sort of like musical Francis Bacon paintings. So thank you for picking up on that, actually, because you're the first to do so in the world. So I appreciate that a lot. In terms of showing it to other places, what's been, for lack of a better word, comforting is that the emotional reaction's been the same everywhere. Which again, I think speaks to, as cliche as it sounds, the universality of music. So when this debuted, I think 3 years ago, at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, it was on the first anniversary of the invasion. It was literally minus 30 something out at the time, very cold. And I was very worried that anyone's going to come to the opening, because my word, it's so cold out you could die if you're not. And we literally had to turn people away. We had 1,100 people show up, and we couldn't fit more people into the building. And then so University, where I've shown this, it's been the same type of reaction, and everybody picks up sort of on their favorites and wants to talk about, maybe it was Ola and her violin, or Beton Ben and the guitar. So it sort of resonates, different pieces resonate with different people that way, then they want to dive into their stories. But again, thank you for picking up on the fragments, because it is a glimpse, a musical glimpse, and that was done that way on purpose.
Yes, you worked on you were in Lviv in 22, right? When you made these photos, when you met these people. I think that most of these people are very familiar to us because they are well known. They are very, very bright personalities here in Lviv, and not only here, but in all Ukraine. But let's be honest, it was a slightly different time. For many of us, for many of Ukrainians, year 2022 seems like a very distant past already. We have gone a very long and hard, very, in some way, adventurous and dangerous way since 2022. And the reception of the Ukrainian topics, the topic of Russian-Ukrainian war in the world has also changed. You are doing this now. You are showing this video. You display you exhibit your artworks now in 2025. What's the are you experiencing any problems related to some kind of fatigue? We often complain about fatigue. Very often we are not really sure that there is something like fatigue. But besides emotional fatigue, are there any other problems with telling people about Ukraine worldwide?
Well, we're lucky in Canada in the sense that there's really no question on where the side that we support. In that part we're very good at. We're fully, Canada's sort of like second Ukraine in that regard. So that support is unwavering. But you talk about the fatigue. It's actually fatigue two ways, and I was just thinking about it when we were talking earlier, because the first time I was here, the environment was a lot more charged, I would say. And now 3 years later, and you even mentioned how the weapons are more sophisticated and they can reach here easier, but it seems to be normalized a bit more. And life here has been, you know, if someone didn't tell me there was a war going on, I've seen everybody, you know, taking their Instagram photos all day. So that fatigue actually kind of goes both ways. It might be a little dangerous. In terms of in Canada, yes, I mean, sadly, there really is a fatigue growing, and I can give you a quick little example. Just as I was leaving to fly out here, it was a three-day journey to come out to Ukraine. The first flight out of Winnipeg, the airport security literally did not understand why I couldn't fly to Kyiv. He just did. And we're intelligent, educated, empathetic people, and he just didn't know, like, why not? And then I got an email from, I won't name who, executive high up in Canada at Telecom that I'm doing some other work with. And I said where I was, and she said, "Oh, are you on vacation?" And I couldn't, it took all my strength not to get angry, because of, you know, the you know, again, what the fatigue is that people just, at times, they just don't want to see what reality is.
Yeah, that has changed significantly, of course, and fatigue is very understandable. We also feel this kind of fatigue, with this, with one very significant difference, that we cannot relax.
Yes. Yes.
Once we relax, we disappear. But when I observe this fatigue abroad, I understand it perfectly well. But what seems to me slightly more dangerous than normal human emotional fatigue is this attempt to find some kind of self-justification for not getting involved in Ukrainian matters, for not being as active as 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm observing something, unfortunately, something colonial in these arguments used to justify this lack of active participation, this pushing this war into the shadow, back into the shadow of the East. This colonial way of thinking comes back after a short pause in 22-23, and I hear again these stories about those Slavs in Eastern Europe, they are incorrigible. They have always been like this. Did you happen to face this kind of arguments? And if so, what kind of counter argument do you use as the person who knows our Eastern stories perfectly well?
Yeah, again, the honest truth is, in terms of this war, I don't come across that, and so that maybe is a bit of a plus. Where people want to push it to the side is that because it's just still so overwhelming and people don't know what they can do to help to stop it. I do find that argument a lot in other war zones that I've worked in, particular in Africa, where those I'll just call them, they're just excuses. You know, in the West, we tend to believe our good life is because we're harder working and smarter than anyone else. And that is absolutely not true whatsoever. It is just absolutely pure luck. And if you want to get historical, it is really traces back to the Marshall Plan in World War II, where all the competition in the West was decimated. And that's why we got to where our wealth is. And that is starting to wane. It's going to be a different generation coming up. And I think that tune will change pretty quickly. But, you know, the fatigue really is coming in the fact that it's so overwhelming for people. And that's a terrible excuse, I know. They don't know what to do to stop it. But luckily, I've not heard any arguments in terms of, you know, well, that's just the way it goes kind of thing. In other conflicts, absolutely, that happens to me all the time, though.
Yeah, sometimes we say that it's the Russian-Ukrainian war, the full-scale invasion, this period of war, because we cannot say the same thing about the whole period of Russian-Ukrainian war after 2014, because between 2014 and 22, it was a war in the shadow. To some extent, it was not broadcasted live worldwide. It was not on the first pages of world newspapers and magazines all the time, but with exceptions of some really outstanding events regarding this war. But after 22, we were used to repeat that this is the most exposed war probably in human history so far, because we don't know how it's gonna look like in future. I assume it will be even more exposed using the very, very modern instruments. But from on one hand, it's very good because we are visible with our misfortunes, with our grief, with our suffering. But on the other hand, it also has its disadvantages. This over exposing of human suffering brings some completely new ethical, moral problems. What do you think about this? This exposed or maybe overexposed nature of this war?
I think I can answer that indirectly in a long rant, if you don't mind. There's a lot to unpack of what you just said. This war is, I think, different than the one I've experienced. One, I'll just say that there is a racial component to it. You know, because Ukraine and Western European, it's white. We in North America, we tend to care about it more, and that's just terrible, but absolutely true. Second, in my view, most of the war is started. You know, peace is not really a cessation of arms; it's a realignment of political and economic interests. So I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here. So I work in Eastern Congo a lot. And I stopped counting after trip number 40. So I've spent a lot of time there. It is currently under rebel occupation. All my friends are threatened and staff every day. I've had staff executed lately. It's been really quite trying. As awful as it is, I understand it because there's a very clear equation right now in Eastern Congo, and I'm going to get to answer your question, I swear. So right now it's occupied by these rebels from Rwanda. So what happens is that current president Paul Kagame, he's evil, but he's a genius. He uses the genocidal guilt very well from '94. USAID bilateral money goes to Rwanda. Then he funnels it into his army, and then he funnels it into a proxy group called the M23. The M23 go into Eastern Congo, and they kill at will, and they take over the mining sector. One mine alone gives this group $800 million US a month in profit. So there's a clear economic means to that. Those mines are all minerals that end up in our cell phones that we each have in our pockets right now. And I've spent 10 years watching 8-year-old children chained up mining this as slaves. It is, of course, awful because I live it, but there's a clear equation on why it continues. It's just simply economic. With here, what I noticed, and I think is even harder for this war, which is tragic, is that I think there's obviously an economic component, which I'll get to, that perpetuates it. But the start of it, my God, that was imperial and just pure evil, which is honestly a little bit different and harder for you guys. The first night in Kyiv, which took 3 days from Canada to get here to Kyiv, and I was honestly, after being up for 72 hours, a little on the tired side, no offense, and went to bed, and then the shelling started, and I went to my window and I saw a streak across the sky, and the drone hit a building. And in that moment, it just felt evil. Oh my God, evil. That's how it started. And then tragically, I think it's perpetuated again, partially from economic means. And from the West as well. That's what angers me about this. Now I'm really going to go on a rant. That's what really angers me about it, is that we're suffering because lots of people in the West are benefiting economically. So right now we do give aid money. Of course, Canada has been generous that way, but it's a little bit of a fallacy. So we give arms. Most of those arms are arms that we had to decommission anyway. It's the old stuff we were supposed to throw out. So we give that to you guys. And then our aid money goes to our weapons manufacturers to build new bombs and bullets for us. And we call it aid for you. And then on top of it, we give rules to how you can use those weapons, because we don't want you guys to be able to strike Moscow and end the war. We want a stasis. We want the front lines to kind of stay in a stasis, because again, the industrial missile complex is making obscene amounts of money for that. And the peace talks right now, again, tragically, are sort of, it's just really good social media, because, rumor has it, and I know this, I won't say who told me, from some people, the US and Russia are working on a deal for natural gas in the Arctic, and they want to normalize relations and mitigate Chinese influence. So what started as evil and imperialistic on the Russian side now is benefiting people in the West economically by a massive amount. And that is a really hard thing to fight against. And just anger, again, I know my anger does not stop the war, but boy, does it anger me.
Yeah, I heard it. I experienced it in Germany, for example. In the US, of course, but there are very many different people there. There is Trump, who has his very pragmatic view of the whole conflict, and of course he wants to benefit it in different ways. But in Europe, in Western Europe, the problem is that the people very often just can't imagine losing sovereignty, losing statehood. Can't imagine finding themselves in a situation when they cannot speak their language, or practice their culture, practice their religion. It's unimaginable for them, and it's very hard to explain them what the existential war means. For them, it sounds very archaic, and they start suggesting us to surrender, because the surrender for them does not mean denial, in terms of denying your culture, language, religion, everything. What creates you as a human being, as a personality. I wanted to ask you, because the title of your project, your whole art project, which is Ghosts Don't Cross Borders, it really fascinated me, and I keep on thinking about what does it mean, and I would like to ask you to explain what do you mean by this?
Sure. I mean, the first answer part to that answer is, As odd as it may sound, when I working on art and these things come to me, I'm not really in control of my ideas at all. They just appear at times, and that's what it is. And and it's a very odd thing, because sometimes I'll be driving or walking and all of a sudden the idea beams in and I have to stop the car and write it down. So that was one of those moments. But where it came from was my time here before in another sort of hotspots around the world, in Africa and in the border of Syria and in Turkey. And what it is noticing that no matter how sort of binary the news might get about showing what's happening, it doesn't come close to doing justice to being on the ground and experiencing this stuff. So that's why I say ghost and cross borders, is because, you know, the true overwhelming nature of what you have to survive every day and what you go through really does not come across on the news. Because if you had to really show the true horror, it would never make it on air. And that's kind of where it came from.
Yes, it's slightly unexpected, but very natural explanation. Now I find it very natural when looking at this from this perspective, because my impression was that ghosts are the ones who easily cross borders, unlike living people. But now I understand what you mean, and that's really very very interesting and very profound. I'd like to open the floor for the questions. So if you want to ask some question or to share any thoughts, any ideas, please raise your hand or just give any other sign.
And no, I'm not afraid to put people on the spot and ask them to ask a question.
No, sure. We go on with our conversation, but in case you feel like asking something, feel free to raise your hand. Darcy, I wanted to ask you about this your musical therapy project. I read about it in different places. I read about it in your interview, and by the way, I also like the name of your project, music. Make music matter. Make music matter, because we very often ask ourselves how to make art matter, how to make it not only important in a very abstract way from the point of view of eternity, but very useful here and now. I know that you worked with the people from different hotspots, from the areas very deeply traumatized by conflicts and wars. Would you please tell us more about the history of the project, but also about your plans regarding Ukraine?
Yeah, it's a lot. Oh my word, a lot there. Well, the Healing and Harmony program is for two particular reasons. One is to heal trauma. That's the outcome. And that is hopefully the premise. Once your trauma is healed, you regain your agency and you can make better choices for the future. The second is the output of that program, which is music that the participants create, and those become tools of advocacy, you know, to help reduce stigma and shame, because trauma has a lot of shame attached to it, and if you have a lot of shame, that means you want to stay home in the dark, and that does not contribute to society. So I have sort of two, if you'd allow me, two examples of actually three real quick of the power of that, and then I'll talk about Ukraine on it. And it is absolutely related. Is again, it's the notion of inverting power. If you're in war, chances are you've had everything taken away from you, or feel as though you have. But the last thing someone can take away from you is the ability to sing and express yourself. It's the last goddamn thing. And therefore people hold on to it dearly. And I think people don't realize how much power is in that. So 3 quick examples. One, again, Eastern Congo, we work with a lot of survivors of sexual violence, very sadly. So used as rape as a weapon of war in that area, because it doesn't cost bullets, and bullets cost money. So if you do that, you know, it's tragic, but that's what occurs. One of the group of ladies who went through the program, who are all survivors, wrote this amazing song called The Criminal Father. And what it does is it calls out the men in the community who allow the violations to continue. That song, and I was there for it, became like a little local hit on radio in the morning. So much so that the military started to call in to complain to stop playing the song, because quote unquote, they're the good guys and they don't do that anymore. Complete lie. They're absolutely still do it to this day. But the fact is that someone with the guns and bullets is scared of somebody with the songs, shows that power. It's amazing. Uganda also work with survivors. There's 14 ladies that wrote to me. They were former sex slaves of the Lord's Resistance Army rebel group in northern Uganda. They had escaped, and they're all planning to commit mass suicide because they thought, what's the point of going on? We're going to get captured again. There's no point to life. They went through the program, created music, started to regain their agency and power, and they wrote to me to say they're no longer going ahead with their suicide, and they're all still alive to this day. Third point, and that gets Ukraine. On Syria and Turkey, where we work with a lot of Syrian refugees from that war, which is also a forgotten war, the Turkish government was so scared of music and people expressing themselves, it literally took me an extra 3 years, and 3 years at 4 organizations I had to go through, partner organizations, before one had a good enough relation with the local government where they said, yes, you can do your program, which was just stunning. So I've been talking to a group here, I think you all know, Save Ukraine. They've been really wonderful in bringing children back who have been abducted from Russia. And, you know, we are ready to work here. I mean, really sadly, it does come down to funding. I would go here in a heartbeat, but we have to get the funding, because sadly, you have to pay the staff to do the work. But that is our intention and plan, and I am discussing right now with various groups to gather that funding to do so.
Yeah, so looking forward to be a part of it, and it's very important that you represent a very valuable perspective of the person who knows the Ukrainian situation from the inside, from the conversations with different people, thinking about it, reflecting on it, making art about this, and but you also know the Western perspective, and you can tell us more about what is missing in our story outside. What should we focus on now to overcome this fatigue, this desire to overcome all these war stories now, which is very, very noticeable now all over. Of course, I know that the situation in the Western world and in the global South, so-called, is really different, and they try to push us in the shadow for different reasons. But still, what is it, in your opinion, in your personal opinion, what is missing now in our Ukrainian narrative about ourselves worldwide?
Yeah, you know, I don't even like saying it because it's not your fault, but what's missing is the feeling of progress. And again, that is not your fault whatsoever. So you know, politicians will do what they think their constituents will want them to do to get voted in to keep their job, no matter what it is. I have had federal politicians in Canada tell me privately, I support you on this, on Ukraine and Exeter, and they've warned me, but publicly, Darcy, I'm not going to support you because the leader of my party does not support that, and I want to keep my job. And again, angers me beyond belief. So what's missing there is probably trying to create a narrative that can demonstrate that you can win all your territory back in a way that's just not hearts and minds. And the problem again with that, it's not your fault because we give this aid, but again, we give you the aid and then we tie your hands around your back. And then we say, why haven't you won? And I would say then is to get, if you can, a little louder and not. In boxing, there's a term about going into somebody else's fight, like don't fight the other person's fight. And right now there's still a little bit of in the narrative, you guys are so nice after all these years and playing the game of thanking the West for everything and being a little bit of Oliver Twist in the bowl of gruel sort of situation, which again angers me so much. And to turn it on us a little bit and to expose us, because the West, we have the corruption, we blame it here, it's us. Because again, we give this money, but we're giving it to our own weapons manufacturers. Again, we're giving it with rules so you guys can't get the long range missiles to really hit. So I think, you know, stop being so nice a little bit on it and expose us. And I think actually that will help a bit. And I don't mind saying it publicly. I don't care whatsoever. People get mad at me. I've had enough death threats in my life. Keep them coming.
I remember the situation when regarding these problems of finding a common language now with Western politicians in particular. I remember the lady who came to Ukraine back in 2013 or early 2014 during the Revolution of Dignity in Kyiv. She represented the European Council or European Parliament. I don't remember. She was a high official, high European official, and I won't quote her now very properly, but her speech was focused on one thing which seemed very strange to us at that time, because she said something like, of course the European values are important and we support you so much that you fight for these European values and it's very important, but please consider if first whether you are mature enough to understand what European values mean. Second, are you sure that European values provide that you should fight for them to the very end, that you should sacrifice your life for the European values? And that what I understood from her speech was that the European values do not mean that someone should be ready to die for them. It's not European. It's not it doesn't fit to the civilized modern world. And I think that it was a turning point when the pro-European revolution, so-called Euromaidan, turned into the revolution of dignity. We use these two terms. Revolution, Euromaidan refers to the first month, maybe, or 2 months after the revolution, but after that, it turned to the revolution of dignity. You said several times in your recent interview about this need for dignity, this need for values in contemporary culture and art as well. When you were asked about this current music business and some artists who do not want to cooperate with the companies which support Spotify, which supports Ukraine, helping Ukrainian army, and you mentioned this word values, or dignity, values. What honestly, do you think that the art based on values can be a concurrent to the art which is based on business, based on big investments, based on capitalization and monetization, so-called? Or does this art based on values and dignity, is it doomed to live somewhere in the niche, in the margin?
No, I kind of separate the two a little bit. So I think you should create art, whatever that is, in a bit of a vacuum, and that vacuum is with whatever your values are and what you want to express. Okay, no matter what that is. And then after, if you want to commercialize it and it goes somewhere, that's great, but they're separate. You shouldn't be done because of another thing. If you create something that is aligned with your values and it becomes a massive hit, that's wonderful, great, go for it, but don't do because of it. And again, without naming names, because they're not in the room, that wouldn't be fair. I have spoken to musicians to do projects for Ukraine, and again, most very supportive, but some that are sort of large world scale rock stars actually said no, because we have fans in Russia and we got to play there again one day, and that means a loss of money. And I just couldn't. I almost hit the guy. Like I couldn't believe it, and that's what I have the problem with. So create your art in a vacuum with your values, and if it does commercially, great, fine, but don't start from that side. And then the politician you're talking about sounds a little paternal and patronizing by what she's saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we have a question.
Cool.
Maybe it's better to use microphone because we have a stream.
Yeah, so I have a related question, I guess. So I hate to make the connections, but you just mentioned artists, musicians who do not want to participate in anything like in support of Ukraine because of financial costs and reputation, I guess, which is ridiculous, but nevertheless. And again, I hate to make the connections, but what about Israeli-Palestine conflict? Like in comparison, not only has it received much more media support, but also support from musicians as well, like festivals and more public appearances were made by musicians, by global musicians actually. Somehow they are less afraid to talk in favor of Palestinians than Ukrainians. And I always wondered why it was like that.
Oh, that's interesting. Like I believe you. I totally believe what you're saying. But, on the Western perspective, honestly, it's been a little bit opposite. And again, it's interesting because from here, I 100% believe what you're saying. On the Western perspective, people have been more afraid to talk about that conflict. I gotta say, because at least in North America, in Canada, as soon as you bring up that subject, you are labeled anti-Semite, and that's it. You're done. So actually, I would like to talk to you more after about how on examples of that perspective, because I'd like to learn more, quite frankly. Yeah, that's just an honest answer. I'm gonna need to learn more from you. Yeah, and I'm not avoiding the question. It's just that's just the sincere. Yeah, please.
Yeah, great. So we have homework. Any other questions, please, or thoughts, reflections?
But I will say, just generally, art aside on that conflict, what drives me crazy about it is just, again, the dehumanization of anything. So when little babies are tragically being starved to death or killed on wherever you are, I can't believe people have to discuss. Like, a baby by nature is innocent. I don't care where. Like, I can't believe we have to discuss and choose a side on that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so we'll probably move to the last part, the conclusion. So thank you for coming, for watching the film with us. Thank you for participating in our conversation, listening to our thoughts. Thank you for welcoming Darsy here in the Ukrainian Catholic University. And I'll remind that tomorrow there will be one more event with Darsy Ataman and with the other artists involved in this project. It will be tomorrow at 3 p.m. 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Світ кави.
6 p.m. right?
6
Yes.
p.m.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the exact information. So 6 p.m. Світ кави cafe tomorrow, and you'll be able to learn more about the whole project, besides the Darsy's artwork, but also the whole idea. So welcome. Thank you very much, Darcy, for coming to the Ukrainian Catholic University today. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Of course, thank you for doing what you do in order to support Ukraine, in order to make our voices more hearable in the world, and for being one of these voices.
Well,
thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.